in this situation?
I'll ask you this. Should all human decisions be determined with logic?
No.
And
that's why I support inherited wealth to a degree. From a moral standpoint.
So
I would support it more morally than I do logically.
Yes. So I would say at the end of the day, there are certain things where logic can apply just as humans because we're emotional beings.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of the Blackatalyst podcast. I'm Kyle.
I'm Chris.
And today we're going to be talking about a fundamental question. Is capitalism the cause of all of America's problems? I feel like today in the economic landscape that we're in, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions about capitalism, socialism, UBI, a whole bunch of economic theories, economic solutions to a lot of the problems that we deal with. So we figured, why not utilize this time, between, trying to reach out to other entrepreneurs and get them on the podcast, small business owners or whoever in general that we feel like could be knowledgeable, getting them on. Let's talk about the economy. Let's talk about economic theory. Let's talk about some of the ideas that people are proposing. Do our research so we can come and present the best information possible. But before we get into capitalism, there's something I want to discuss, which is this idea of like we're entering a time that we've never been in before. Technology at one point was the wheel. People invented the wheel and it was called technology. Mm-hmm. Now we got computers, we got phones, right? And now that is starting to get mixed into this medical space and this idea of biotech. I remember in the last podcast, I don't know, I think it was the last one, you were talking about biotech being like the next $1 billion industry.
Absolutely.
Remember? And I feel like with all great things in life, there comes some negative. And I feel like biotech, as important as it is in helping further society, it also could be used in ways that are strategic for people who have different interests that might not be in the same interest of the everyday person. You feel me?
Basically, what you're saying, with all the good that biotech could bring, it could potentially bring some harm.
For sure. And it's like, even like with the advancements in like before, like there was a time where we were starting to advance a lot in the areas of science where it was like the Cold War. And it's like, battle of the scientists, basically. It's like who's going to create the best, scientific thing at the time that was going to change the world. It was like the atom and like the H-bomb and the nuclear bomb and stuff like this, nuclear warfare kind of landscape. And that's when it was the Cold War, where it was like the U.S. versus Russia. Now I feel like we're in a space where it's like the U.S. versus China.
So basically, so back then, all these huge developments, it was like a historic time in society because we were all coming out these revolutionary technologies, but on the other side of that, it came with like dangerous implications. Even in like 2000, so internet comes out and we've entered the age of information. With that also came the age of misinformation. So like all these,
I like that.
All these things coming out, and it's almost hard to decipher what's true or not. It's like all of these good golden apples come with some like a worm in the middle, like the good and the bad, the yin and yang. And I absolutely agree with you. Right now, the next step would be integrating what we've seen health with also biotech, and I'm curious to see what the negative implications of that could be.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I'm happy you brought up this idea of like information technology, because it's like there's a lot of cases. I'm just gonna throw this out there for people to do the research, but like the Mark Zuckerberg situation, Jack Dorsey situation,
all the Senate hearings, the antitrust, the Big Four.
And it's like you have these platforms that are amazing. You can connect with your family. You can connect with people that you haven't seen in years. Or you have like this like social networking like LinkedIn. I mean, LinkedIn's not in this mix, but I'm just gonna throw it in there. Like the fact that you connect with people and like create these. I'm not gonna say artificial, but like just reach out to people and like build connections that way. But it's like now they're being utilized as a way to like, I'm not gonna say brainwash, but present information that they feel like is the best information for society. And I feel like that's a dangerous game to play. And I feel like even in the idea of biotech, once you're starting to decide what you think is best to put in someone's body, I'm not saying that I'm against anything like that, but like it's a dangerous space to get into.
Yeah, it's tough because Apple, Twitter, Facebook, they all do so good, bringing people together. Back in the day, you couldn't reach someone across the world with the click of a button. And now they introduce so many different technologies that can do that. You have social groups, Instagram, I can upload a pic. You know exactly what I'm doing.
Exactly.
You can hit me up.
You even know where you are.
You give me your reaction to, I'm like, oh, my boy down the street. Or across the world, like that post. But it also comes with so many things on the flip side. So like you were saying, there's all these antitrust hearings. All these companies have been in this, like in Congress recently, like having hearings and getting grilled to some degree about the power they have. And it is an interesting question because on one hand, you do want these companies that have so much power to bring information to everyone to like, you don't want videos of like a beheading just out to the public. But yet that's a con that comes out. And I hear you though. At what point is the line drawn? Like from when it's a beheading to when it's like just this absurd flat earth conspiracy theory that perhaps let it out. I mean, if you believe it, that's on you. But like maybe it's up to the user to decide.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, I personally would not want to see a beheading myself either. So I would want the platform to kind of to tailor that. But I think that with misinformation, bro, I could go on Facebook right now or any platform in general. I'm not even gonna throw Facebook under the bus, but like any platform, I can go out today and say any lie under the sun, right? Just cashed in $1 million, right? They're not gonna flag it. That's clearly misinformation. But since it's personal to me, they're not gonna flag it. They don't think it's gonna create chaos.
Well, that just reminded me. So I don't know if you knew about the whole Twitter thing when like they had like Elon Musk, all these big name like verified users. I think even Obama, they posted it on their Twitter feeds because of a hacker, and it was like, "You give me $2,000 and we'll double whatever you put in as like part of this like Bitcoin thing." And there was a bunch of people who actually got
like
scammed.
A financial scam.
Yeah, because they saw these verified users saying like, "Oh, we're just trying to give back to the community. Whatever you put in, we'll double it." And a bunch of people got like caught for that because if I see Barack Obama tweet, I mean, maybe not me, but essentially they thought it was a trusted source. And in the end, a lot of people got hurt.
I mean, hey, bro, people trust the former presidents. You know, people believe that whatever former presidents say is law. I mean, I'm not against the specifics, but
we'll get into that later.
People do believe that. But this idea of like biotech again. So I was reading an article on CNBC, and it was basically saying like how China is like the number one threat to like American national security, right? Because they do a lot of things because they have the power to do so. In their country, you know, they have a very authoritarian political system in which, you know, I mean, that's authoritarian, just not? Yeah, authoritarian political system in which there's one person in charge that kind of makes decisions. And basically what they're doing is they're basically trying to create a real life Captain America right now.
Really?
Yeah. You know, Captain America, you know, they froze the guy, you know, basically injected some stuff.
Scrawny guy comes out buff.
Chris Evans, mad.
Yeah.
Probably, right? And you're questioning yourself, like, this can never happen in real life. I feel like a lot of things on TV that we see is like, this can never happen in real life.
And then slowly but surely you start to see these things happen in reality. I mean, there's like a famous quote that says, art imitates reality.
Yeah.
And it's one of those chicken or the egg arguments, whether it's which one comes first, because we do see like even like movies like The Pandemic or that famous video game back in the day, Pandemic, like however the best way you can have a disease go viral, and then you like kind of see those things come to fruition, maybe because it's just in like the collective consciousness or things of that nature. But there is definitely a thing of art imitating reality.
Nah, not for sure. I'm not even gonna get spiritual with that in terms of like manifestation and things like that. But no,
and that's also another thing that's coming up. We definitely want to address because we're gonna get straight to the facts. But that's become a lot more mainstream today. Like people actually believe they could manifest things, whether you can or not. Who knows? But it's definitely picking up steam.
No, that's true. Even like the whole idea of like The Simpsons too, and like how like The Simpsons they'll like have something in an episode, low key will come true. It's like, yo, what's going on? But it's like the same idea of like art imitating reality is like they put the idea out there, people see it subconsciously, they believe it, comes to reality.
Absolutely. I mean, there's
a lot of movies that actually kind of scares me now.
A lot of movies, and there's that famous shot of like Trump like going down the escalator. And, like, that's fine. Like, okay, you guess who the president is going to be. Big guess. But
that's a pretty steep guess, though. I ain't going to lie to you.
But additionally, in it, there was, like, a sign that fell in the Simpsons shot. And then, like, in the actual real life, when it happened, there was, like, a sign that fell. And I'm just like, all right. Who knows what's actually going on.
You know what's crazy, too? They said that there's, like, a picture of, like, the electoral map in The Simpsons. And then everybody, like, when the actual election was going on, they're, like, watching The Simpsons, like, yo, is this true? Looking at the electoral map, like, trying to see, like...
I don't buy that one so much just because, like, states typically vote the same, but I did see that one. The main one that's coming up soon is, like, there's a recent Simpsons episode. And it was, like, January 20th, 2021. And it's, like, just fire and chaos everywhere. And hopefully that does happen. Hopefully that's just one of those episodes, like 90%
One of
of the
those
episodes,
hoax episodes, yeah.
like the majority of episodes, but like
Wait, January. You said January what?
you should actually probably look it up. Type in January 20th, 2021 Simpsons episode.
Wait, isn't January 20th, 2021 inauguration?
Absolutely.
That's devious. I ain't gonna lie to you.
Type in Simpsons episode.
January 20th. Oh yeah, right.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm pretty sure that's inauguration day.
Well, and that's the one I was talking about before. But also, like, if you're watching right now, you can look this up too. It's very short. But yeah, that's the scene. And then the whole episode is about the election. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's kind of wild actually now. But I feel like the Simpsons now they're probably having fun with it. Hopefully. I'm trying to find reasonable like rationale for this.
Yes. Trying to be logical.
I'm trying to think that they're having fun with it now. They've made some decisions because the way things are going, I'm not gonna say it's possible, but I'm saying, hey, you never know.
We
put a lot.
Clearly have no idea what's going on. I mean, they even had the monolith. Yeah, have you been seeing like the whole monoliths?
It was trending on Google, but I didn't know what it was about.
Basically, just a monolith like appeared in like Utah or something. I didn't even know
what is a monolith.
I didn't know what it was before, but I guess it's
it
just the structure.
Let's look it up real quick.
It'd also be nice if you had like an image of monolith.
Yeah, I'm gonna pop it up on the screen.
It's just that.
Yo,
but that was also in a Simpsons episode.
Nah, stop it. Yeah, I'm gonna pop an image of this on the screen. It's looking like a beacon. It's looking like some crazy like skyscraper.
Know what this is. Like this.
I don't even know. It's looking like some wild chalice that Thor would come down and like smash with his hammer.
Pops up in Utah, then it starts popping up all over the world. Apparently, at the end of the day, it was just some like artist like.
He's just traveling the world.
Traveling the world.
Iron blocks everywhere,
making people freak out, like kind of getting a kick out of it, which is funny. But people did freak out for a bit, saying like aliens. I mean, it's like the 2020 finale, like there'll be like stuff like that. 2020 has been a year, so you can't be too surprised when crazy stuff happens.
And talking about crazy things, so like the whole idea of like China, they're trying to create genetically modified soldiers, right? So basically, I literally copied and pasted from the article. Basically, the goal is to create biological dominance. When you think of biological dominance, what comes to mind? I have a few ideas. Yeah, I think of Hitler too. But I think like in terms of like if you were a soldier,
but beyond that,
like I'm saying, like if you was a soldier, you could create a biologically dominant person. What would you try to create?
It would be just the highest attributes that a person could have. So like imagine you're creating an NBA 2K player. I'm gonna give him big height, strong, top speed, all athletic capabilities, and then in a war scenario, I give him high IQ, high reflexes to be able to like to respond to his environment quickly. So that's what I would think of in terms of biological dominance. But if you take it one step further, perhaps maybe it's just not your soldiers, it's just like your population in general. So like maybe like once a kid's in the womb, you know what diseases they'll have at a certain point.
Yeah.
And this is actually being discussed right now. Like at a certain point, technology can get to the point where during pregnancy, this child's going to be more likely to have like diabetes or whatever. So that's my idea of biological dominance.
Then I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking like, I didn't know for sure if they could like increase height because I felt like by the time someone would undergo this procedure, I mean honestly, because just the fact that the article referenced Captain America is just like the thing that was stuck in my head. So I'm thinking of like definitely some type of like speed, like. Or like something with endurance. I feel like they couldn't go too crazy initially. I feel like with endurance, they could probably create a way that like their soldiers could run for like a very, very long amount of time. Or something like, but like strength, it's not like some wild like Mr. Incredible or something where you like flipping cars, but it's like their muscles don't fatigue that fast or something like that.
Yeah, no.
I feel like that's just the starting block. I feel like it's going to get to the point probably where you could just like flick the whole mic across the room.
Well, at that point, you'd have to actually like merge with like machine, whatever that means. Maybe 100 years. But in terms of endurance and fatigue, perhaps just harder training regimens. Maybe not even that crazy.
But I feel like there's a way. I feel like there's a very like easily. I'm not gonna say easy because I don't know anything about like biology in general. But I feel like if there was like a perfect way to start, I think that endurance in terms of like. I feel like that's just the easiest way for some reason.
Like what? Someone who could like withstand more pain, or someone who could like run 10 miles.
Both, I would say. I feel like if you could create a way that a cell could regenerate very, very quickly, and then like think about, I feel like endurance is like you're tired because you're not pumping blood fast enough, like you're not oxygenating fast enough, or something like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm just throwing random things out there. I'm saying like I feel like in a situation, if a cell is taking too long and you could speed it up, that seems like a pretty logical thing that you could easily be able to do. I feel like with Mr. Incredible or things like where you're like Superman, you're like crazy strong, pick up a car. I feel like that's probably a little bit later, like down the pathway maybe.
A lot of it later, but yeah.
Yeah, a lot of it later. Exactly, you gotta like do like something else. But I feel like regenerating cells quickly enough where you're running and you're never tired, or like you're taking a very long time to get tired. I feel like that's feasible for whatever reason.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, I could see that in several hundred years. Maybe that's aggressive, but I think what will come right before that, if we're talking about like cells in terms of reversing processes of cells, so like cells decay over time, but now you're able to like reverse that, then we would first unlock like immortality. I actually saw an article.
Immortality before longer endurance?
So, and this is why.
Okay, I'm
because all these things would come to fruition as a result of like some moral cause. So like we're seeing, like what we're saying with the age of information brought the age of misinformation. This age of like new like biological medicines that would be able to like stop cancers. So immediately the average lifespan extends.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like the first effort that society would tackle would be all these health issues that are decreasing average lifespan, and over time. Now we've extended, let's say you live to 100 years. There's no more diseases. It's just natural body decay. Then you would get to, if you get to, and I also have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm just
we're just throwing out stuff in terms of biological dominance idea. Yeah.
But yeah, so if you begin to reverse the natural processes of cells, then you could theoretically reverse a cell decaying, which would mean.
Oh, I get you.
Which mean age would no longer become a factor. Because at a certain point, you would just be able to rewind the clock in essence. And then my one last point to that, there's like shows or whatever, and we've talked about how art imitates reality, but we're trying to keep it logical. Where like uploading your content, that sounds absolutely absurd to me. But the same way if I showed the phone to someone in the 1600s, they'd think I'd be
not even 1900.
I'd be
like, yo, whoa, what is this? Oh, it's crazy. Boom, might knock you out.
Not even, I'd be in the Salem witch trials for like performing magic. Yeah. So
that just unlocks some.
Yeah, what was I just saying though? That last thing right before that about
you were saying about slowing cells tacking on mortal life.
Exactly. So transferring consciousness. I mean, we're seeing Elon with this whole Neuralink, which we've talked about in previous episodes. So now, if there's the ability to like upload, I don't even know. And this, I can't even pretend to like know something. But in 100 years or so, you might look back at this video if you're still alive, which I guess is now possible as a point to this conversation, and be like, I don't know. There's like a natural progression of things, and at the most idealistic and optimistic version of a futuristic society, I see that at the end of the path.
No, I agree. I'd agree.
So with China, I do think immortality would come before, but the opposite of that, the yin and yang, or the downside to us coming out with all these innovative technologies would be, in terms of war, now we're coming out with biological super soldiers. We're going to reverse processes. Now you no longer have fatigue.
Yeah, the only reason I was saying I feel like endurance will come first, I feel like it'll be easier to slow down a cell before it'll be able to reverse it.
Yes,
to a degree, but no, I definitely stand there. I just saw actually a video that now you say that actually reminds me that there's like a lot of technology that's like actually proven to work. That's like can add an extra 25 years to someone's lifespan, just because of the fact that they can slow down things so much and they can actually reverse something. It was something about like a specific like disease that. Are
you talking about like telomeres?
I didn't watch the video honestly, but I saw it and I figured that it was something interesting. I'll probably watch it one day, but I didn't watch it yet. But yeah, for sure.
Right.
But wait. Yo.
No, we're recording. All right.
No, we're good. But no, that's not. I was trying to check. I thought that it didn't have the SIM card in. Guys, if you listen to the podcast, just know sometimes technical issues do arise. And sometimes we do have to make certain decisions. So if you ever hear us just stop randomly, it's because we're checking the camera. It's nothing crazy, you know. But yeah. So basically, in China, they're using something called. I'm gonna read the exact paragraph called. What they did. So basically, to date, the use of CRISPR in animal has been very prominent element of Chinese research. For example, the use of gene-edited animals to grow human-like organs for use in transplants may prove not only lucrative, but also medically promising given continued shortages of organs, according to Bloomberg. Also, the creation of highly muscular dogs for use in policing illustrates the potential for gene-edited animals to contribute to state coercion. So basically, it's a lot there. What basically they're saying is that they've been using a technology to genetically modify animals so an animal can grow a human organ so they can sell, basically.
Okay.
So basically, that's basically the same tool that they're using to do that is a tool that they want to now use to experiment on humans. Because like, yo, we're growing hearts, we're growing livers in animals that we now can sell for medical use, right? Which is, I mean, it depends. If you're a vegan person, you don't care about. I mean, you care a lot about killing animals. If you're not a vegan, you probably don't care that much. But basically, I think that's probably a decent thing. If an animal could grow a human heart, and you could do a transplant for a human, I think that's beneficial.
No, I mean, if you don't have to wait online on this long list for like a kidney transplant because like no one can give it to you, and you get it from an animal, that's definitely beneficial.
But think about that. Now they want to use the same technology used for that on human people to do the stuff that we're talking about. And people are saying that, like, there's no limits. I mean, listen, I've never been to China, bro. I go off what the media says. I mean, I feel like most people go off what the media says. The media is saying there's no limits. There's no limits to what they believe that right now the current state of the Chinese government would do in order to establish dominance.
I mean, they already eat dogs, so...
Yeah, I mean, hey.
But that's also a culture thing. It's just in America we have a greater appreciation for dogs than they do. So perhaps in a society where they don't care, you would see these innovations a little sooner.
It's crazy to think because it's like you think of like a regular American soldier today, you go to the boot camp, you do all the intricacies of whatever you do in the army. I'm not gonna act like I know what that is, and you work really hard. But what if it's not so simple? It's like you enlist in the army today, tomorrow you're at the hospital, 3 days later you're a super soldier. Like, isn't that beast, bro? Like,
sounds like best case scenario.
Do you feel like that's the future of combat? Like, there's definitely different ways that combat could be translated, especially in the landscape we're in. But in terms of like on a soldier standpoint, do you feel like technology, whether it's either I'm giving you some type of robotic capabilities or biologically I'm going to advance you, do you feel like that's the future of soldiers in warfare?
Yeah, I mean, people already have bionic arms and legs.
But like not the average soldier. I feel like the average person has like a bionic something is like someone who had a disability.
But yes, so like if that's commercial in essence,
got you.
I would assume that military tech is above what's commercial grade. Commercial grade is what's mass produced versus military. I would assume they have top tier technology.
Yo, you ever saw the movie War Dogs?
Sounds familiar.
Jonah Hill?
I don't think so.
Dang, you gotta watch that.
I probably have.
I'm not gonna spoil it if you haven't seen it, but basically it just reminds me of like this idea of getting government contracts.
Yeah.
And it's like, yo, if you could create a robotic arm and then you sell it to the government, yo, you're rich, bro. If you could create any way to like genetically modify the American soldier and then you get a government contract, that's easily a $1 trillion contract.
There's actually
easily.
like wholesale. This is completely off topic, but just real quick, like wholesale real estate, there's like government contract flipping that are like there are leases available to the public. I couldn't even look; it was too advanced. But that's a quick sidetrack.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how someone could do that. 'Cause once you secure the contract, at that point, you probably could sell the contract to an actual company that can actually do it.
You make so much money. I don't know how you begin to do it, but it's like a thing. Apparently.
I mean, you'd have to.
I think you would have to know some people. But
you definitely would. But like even like on the idea, like we just talked about just now, about like this idea of like the Chinese super soldier, but like that, and it sounds kind of wild in theory to think of like, oh, you're gonna have like a crazy futuristic soldier doing a whole bunch of wild nonsense, right? But the idea of like even in today's like idea of like biotechnology or like biology being used as a strategy, we're living in it right now. Like we're literally filming this during COVID-19, right? And like the whole thing's like a vaccine is coming out soon. A lot of companies have getting to the point where they're testing like almost finalizing. 95% effectiveness, 90% effectiveness, things like that, right? But even just this, before you step back from like even like the actual science of it, do you feel like honestly like the COVID-19 situation was politicized?
I mean, like in terms of politicized, absolutely. Is it something that the average person should be concerned of day to day? To some degree, yes. I don't think it should fully ruin anyone's livelihoods, but there are certain precautions we have to take because there's some groups of people who are more at risk. But I do think there are certain political characters who are using it for, like, I don't want to say power, but aren't taking it as seriously as, like, an average American has to. So, like, there are many instances of, like, people like Governor Newsom or whoever, or even Cuomo, honestly, here in New York, just being seen in public, not
following protocol
the exact protocols that they're forcing
on others. Yeah.
so many people to do. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's been politicized. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about whether, like, the shutdown should it have been this prolonged, or should it have been like a more abbreviated abridged version? And in addition to that, is that also a negative effect of capitalistic society? Like, are we too concerned about our economic livelihoods that we can't even properly address an issue this big?
So in terms of, do I feel like with the length of the shutdown, I think that the virus writ large was definitely over politicized. I feel like once people saw that this was something that was affecting the whole society, that people realized, oh, this is a great way to get people on a specific camp. We just got to make sure we make a decision that's in the best interest. And I think that if you appeal to the side of the most empathetic side, I think that more times than not, you're going to get the best response, because everybody wants to feel like they're being taken care of, or at least heard out. I feel like most people want to have some sort of connection with someone who is technically in power. So if you're a politician and you're in a leadership position, and I'm an everyday citizen, I want you to feel like you care about me. So if your response to it comes from an empathetic standpoint, which you're empathizing with people who could potentially lose someone or potentially could lose their own life, then you automatically place yourself in a position that is more advantageous to someone who you could potentially be in a political contest with. So I feel like to that degree it has been politicized. And the fact that, listen, I'm just going to come out and say the wildest thing. Like, listen, shut everything down. We got people we got to care about. Every single thing you see, shut everything down. Masks, gloves, spray hand sanitizer 10,000 times. I'm not personally going to do it because I don't think it's that necessary. But I feel like what the public needs to hear is the most empathetic standpoint.
Nah, and to go off that, like, I remember, like, Nancy Pelosi, there's, like, footage of her, like, going into, like, some, like, hair salon with, like, no mask. The owners of the salon are like, you gotta wear the mask. She's like, nah, or whatever. And it's like, right beforehand, is you telling everyone we need to shut down. I agree with you. I'm thinking we wanna save the most lives. I'm like putting you on a pedestal for being so, like, morally focused. Like, this is what we need to do for others, and I'm aboard that vision. Then I see you just with total disregard for that. It's like, oh, so maybe you're just a politician. Now maybe you're just saying what you need to say and then doing what you want to do.
Yeah, no, and I completely agree. And even, like, the whole idea of, like, the capitalistic aspect of it, too, which is crazy. Why? Governor Cuomo came up with a book?
I did, yes.
About this?
Yes.
I feel like it's nothing more capitalistic than that. Like, I really want to be honest. Like, this guy is selling a book during a pandemic about the pandemic.
Yeah.
Like, that seems very capitalistic. I'm not going to say that was his intention. He could have genuinely wanted to, disseminate some great information. I'm not going to say at all that's why he's coming with capitalistic views. But I'm saying, how you're the governor, you write a book, now you're selling a book, and now you're going on the media to talk about a virus while they're
I'm pretty sure the book was also, like, how to, like, properly, like, he's, like, it's kind of as if he, like, reacted flawlessly to the situation when New York was, like, an absolute hot spot for the longest time. Like, so many, we could have done better, and that could be the result of the bottom level, not just the people at top, but to come out with a book, additionally, it's just, like, and the thing is, I support getting the book, like, get the back.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously,
do what you gotta do, but then don't come to me and not even come to me. It's not like I have my own small business. And I think that's the greatest concern. But what's the book?
Nah, so I'll put a picture on the screen too over here. So basically, the book is called American Crisis: Leadership Lessons. I don't even know what that little small part says, but leadership lessons from the COVID-19
leadership
pandemic.
Lessons. Okay.
So basically, I don't know what his point was. The thing is that throws me off is he was thrown into a larger, like, role, I guess, as a part of the pandemic, like, there's global coverage of Cuomo now. He's a pretty big guy at this point. Like CNN has him on like here and there,
I actually
often.
love those.
Right?
Between
him and his
Cuomo,
brother, him and his brother have
those are
some
great.
good banter, on CNN. And now, after he gained so much popularity, in the middle of when he's shutting down the economy, people is barely able to, there's people who are actually genuinely suffering from like a small business standpoint. Not saying that, you should say small business over health or anything like that, but I'm saying there's people who are genuinely suffering. And this guy chooses this as the opportune time to release a book that is selling on Google Play for $15.
Wait, click this one.
Which one?
There's no way that's a book.
Nah, I don't think this is
Cuomo, America's Sexiest Governor. And it's like a photoshopped image of like a ripped, like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Andrew Cuomo.
Nah, I think that this is just them trying to make fun of him.
Nah, that's pretty funny.
Because on Walmart, you can do a whole bunch of nonsense. But it's like, it's crazy how much this situation is. And once again, to say like the whole idea of like shutting down or remaining open, I feel like a lot of people who push the remaining open standpoint is just, I feel like that's a flaw of capitalism. Like the fact that I feel like in a more collective society where you like everyone is like in it together, that would not even be something you would even fathom. It's like, if a disease is hurting people and you have a collective society and everybody is helping fund something, it's like, if you can't go to work, we have the funds because we're still operating over here, we're still doing this, that, we're going to make sure you're good. But I feel like in a capitalist society, that could potentially be a flaw, is the fact that everyone is kind of making their own living and everyone is kind of pursuing their own goal. So you can't really rely on another person to be able to fund your livelihood in a capitalistic society. So something like shutting down is actually very detrimental to your life, especially if you spent years building a small business and you guys are, doing decent revenue. And then it's like, yep, get that out of here. Boop, no more revenue for you. It's like, what am I going to do now? Like, this is the society we live in.
Yeah, and it's not, but so I agree with you to the point where, okay, so maybe the capitalistic society has put us in a situation where we can't even focus on issues like this as much because we're too worried about the incentives of like profit over other people's livelihoods in terms of health. But one of the biggest concerns with small business is that while they might have revenue, it's typically, and this is common throughout most small businesses, it's typically like you have enough revenue to pay the bills, to pay the workers, and maybe a little bit additional afterwards for reinvestment purposes. But when you have several months of no revenue, perhaps you're still paying workers, and like you're definitely still paying like the fixed cost of like keeping the like shop like maintenance. It's like at that point, there essentially just becomes a time when you're shut down for good. Not because one day society won't return back to normal, but even once it does, you no longer have the capital to take care of that because you still have a family to worry about. Like the main point is, there's a lot of small businesses that like after COVID will not return.
Yeah, for sure. But because the people who argue the fact that let's remain open in these situations, their motives, I would say, are primarily profit.
Yeah.
And I guess my question would be, do you feel like without COVID, those small businesses that are going to shut down would have remained, or was it an inevitable end for them anyways?
I guess if you're asking if small businesses didn't exist, if that wasn't a con to this whole situation, would people be as much of a proponent to bring back the, like, open up? Probably not. But because it is, I think it's like a valid concern that like people are facing, because people have made livelihoods off, especially when it's a small. It's not like a franchisee, like it's like a small business. Like
life saving.
They've devoted all their resources, most likely, to whatever it is. This is their livelihood. You shut that down, then you're also shutting down their life. But it absolutely is a con of capitalism, because like people set up their lives based off of their jobs. I mean, it makes sense. You get the greens, you got the car, maybe you get the girl at the end of the day. Like that's kind of how the capitalist society goes. Right. But I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who won't get the girls, and the cars for several years after this, and some who may never see that again.
That's crazy, bro.
But that is all the product of the capitalist society. Pros and cons, for sure.
No, for sure. I definitely agree with that too. And like this whole idea of like the mask wearing situation, like I'm not even really gonna get too deep into it. I only brought it up because I feel like that's something that's been heavily politicized for whatever reason. I personally don't see why anyone would oppose wearing a mask, but I mean that's just me. I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just like for me. Like I'm only gonna speak for myself. I mean, I feel like everybody has their differing opinions on the situation. But for me personally, I feel like if I could wear a mask and it could potentially stop me from affecting someone in any negative way, that's something I don't mind doing. But I feel like people make it this very big spectacle, like you're not gonna control me. It's like, bro, I don't think anybody's trying to tell you can't like live your life, but it's like I think it's just a garment.
I had a conversation with a buddy of mine the other day about this. It was like right now there's like a group of people, and it's kind of like when a certain group of people don't follow a rule and then everyone gets in trouble. So it like kind of throws it back to like when you're in school, perhaps the kids in the back were talking,
Or sports.
or sports, or even but check me out. Maybe like the kids in the back were talking and then like the whole class gets in trouble. Maybe like you're in trouble for recess. The problem is there was a certain point for many years of my life where I was that kid, but now
that kid that was making the whole class suffer.
Maybe maybe I'm being a class clown. Everyone's laughing. Maybe the rest of the class isn't actively engaged, but they definitely to some degree support it. But now that's not the case in terms of those kids in the back of class aren't those same kids who are being class clowns. They're like now it's like redneck hillbillies who are like flat earth. Like I'm being very straightforward here.
With this respectfully.
Point. It's like before it's like maybe like putting a finger up to authoritative figures was kind of cool or funny, at least, maybe not cool. But now to some degree, it's like when it actually puts other people's lives at risk, it's no longer like, it's not funny. You're not a class clown. You're just a clown.
No, for sure. No, that's a perfect point. Cause like I understand the point, like you perfectly just said, is like you want to stick it to the government, or stick it to the establishment. I'm so anti-establishment, anti-government, whatever.
And sometimes it's not even that deep. I don't have my seatbelt on when I drive. Fine, okay, that's a harm to yourself. Okay,
exactly. And it's like, what is really the point? Like my thing that I just genuinely understand is like, what is really the point? I understand that most people who hold this view is like, if I give them power in the small things, I give them power in the big things. It's like, all right, I get where you're coming from, and I get the whole standpoint where it's like, oh, there should never be a mandate that says I have to do anything that the government is forcing me to do. It's my body, blah 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 blah, which goes into a whole another pathway I'm not even trying to go down. But it's like, I guess that's where their mind is like, start small, they're gonna take bigger things.
But all right, so here's where it goes too far though. When you say you can't have Thanksgiving with your family, that to me is too far. Because okay, yes, maybe in years prior, and this actually isn't the case for me, but I've been to gatherings like this for Thanksgiving. All right, maybe in the past there's like 20, 30 people for Thanksgiving. They're coming from all over. It's like once or twice a year. Maybe the one after is Christmas. Like you have family over, and perhaps in today's day and age that isn't as okay. But why are you making it illegal? Shouldn't there at least be enough faith in like the people of society to be like, all right, maybe this year I won't have grandma and grandpa over for Thanksgiving because it's not the best thing to do this year. I don't want to put anyone at risk. When you make it so, when you're trying to say you can't do this, we have your best interest in mind. Well, no, I'm still an individual. I can like find my best interest myself. That to me is when it gets slightly too far. And it's only after a year. If COVID went on for several more years, I honestly don't know. I mean, it's not. We have vaccines now. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But I, at least to some degree, understand the argument of a precedent, but not with the mask.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm happy you brought up that point just now on the idea of being able to be smart enough to make a decision. Because that's the thing that a lot of people argue today is like, does the government not trust the population to make a rational decision?
Clearly
because
not.
A lot of things in a lot of situations, there's a lot of third-party intervention in everyday life because there's a notion that the everyday person can't make a decision. For example, a perfect example is this idea of censorship, censoring from misinformation. That whole concept of censoring misinformation is off of the premise that they don't believe that the average citizen is smart enough to say this information is false or come to a logical conclusion after deductive reasoning to say, I don't think that this is true. So they're like, rather than putting the burden on someone else to use their intelligence to say something is not true, we're just going to take it off. Even if it might have truth to it. If they can say, we don't think this is true, or we think this is harmful information, we're not going to let the average consumer of our platform make that decision. We'll make it for you. Which is a dangerous game to play, for sure.
No, I mean, like, if there's a certain point where there needs to be some consistency, because, like, there's cigarettes are killing people over decades and decades. We're going to continue to let that happen. Alcohol is obviously really bad in terms of abuse. The opioid addiction, like, we're getting better, and there are laws against it. But there's just so many different things in society that, like, people engage in self-destructive acts where we, like, turn a blind eye because those have profits. But right now, the profit would be in, like, I can't even, like, go down that road. But essentially, it's like, if there was consistency, I couldn't argue with it. But there's not. It's very...
Even an idea of consistency, bro. I'm going to say this one time, and I mean it, based on my current understanding of the world. I'm going to say this every podcast episode, just in case somebody ever try to quote me on some, like, 10 years ago type timing. Based on my current understanding of the world, I believe all drugs should be legalized.
Who just did that, though? Was it Oregon? Some state just made
all drugs?
All drugs.
I think it's the most logical thing. I think it's a slap in the face to not have them legalized. For you to say that I'm not smart enough to choose not to do something that's harmful to myself actually kind of makes me mad.
I mean,
and if I choose to make that decision, who are you to tell me I can't? We both live on the same earth.
Literally, maybe you're not.
I'm getting tight, bro.
Maybe you're not, but, like, then you're going to suffer. You're going to reap the repercussions, and then someone who didn't make that decision is going to likely succeed, like, past you. And if that's the case, that's the case. But, like, I agree.
But hear me here. Me and you are both on the same earth, right? The president of the United States is no different than me and you, right? The Queen of England is no different than me and you in terms of biological makeup.
Yeah.
I would assume, right? Who is anybody to tell me I can't do something if we all live in the same earth? This is just like something I genuinely question all the time. There's certain things that I feel like the majority of society thinks is ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't just go around just straight shooting people in the head. Like, I feel like most people say that as well, right? But in terms of drugs, right? Who is somebody else to tell me I can't do something off of the premise that they're like, oh, I think it's bad for you? Great. I think a lot of things are bad for me and I still do it. Don't tell me what to do. Like, we are the same. You are a human the same way I am a human. Who are you to tell me what to do? Just because a lot of other people thought you were cool and wanted to vote for you? Okay, like, don't tell me what to do. I just my personal standpoint on it. I think all drugs should be legal.
All right, all drugs should be legal, but the only argument about who are you to tell me what you do, our society is set up in a way where these people, so a teacher has to tell their student to do, cops has to tell me what the laws are. The laws we can debate, but he is in a position to tell me what to do, I guess. And they do go too far, as we've seen in 2020. And then the president would be the overarching guy. Even though the past 4 years, there are a lot of people who would be like, who are you?
They tell me what to do, yeah.
But, no, I see what you're saying.
I mean, even when I was a student, bro, when it comes to teachers, I used to ask the same question. I'm like, yo, who are you telling me what to do, bro? I was like, yo. Anyways, that's for another story. Shout out to one of my teachers. But this idea also is like, I feel like the vaccine is like being used as like this kind of like capital. Do you feel like, okay, let me work this in the proper way. There's definitely economic impacts of a vaccine, right? In a positive way, in certain situations, right? There's obviously companies right now that are creating vaccines right now, trying to do what's best for the society and create a vaccine that's going to help cure the most people or help prevent a lot of the hysteria around COVID-19, right? But my thing is, if everyone would need a vaccine, right? Is the government paying for this? Like, is the government paying for it? They are, right? So if the government is paying for it, this is basically one of the easiest capital plays I would ever say. Because, like, if I'm a company and I'm creating a vaccine, I already know once I secure the vaccine, I secure easy billions of dollars. Because you have to make sure your whole population can get it. 300 million Americans plus, right, have to get administered a vaccine. I think the last figure I saw with the vaccine was like $20 or something, right? That's easily $1 billion something plus of money that's going to these companies. What stops a company in the future for saying, let me just, cook up something in the lab. I'm not, let me just release a little. Hey, the thing is, the thing that's crazy is like they don't even generally have to release something. They just have to create a hype that there is something.
So here's the here's the thing.
We're not trying. Okay.
No. I got
Okay.
Here's the thing. So yeah, if theoretically, after 2020, I see we got Operation Warp Speed. We got every country in the world donating like millions to billions probably of dollars to make sure this vaccine comes out within the year. It's a highly profitable business. It's also a highly efficient business. We have Pfizer comes out with 95% effective vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
If in the future you have connects and maybe you got your boy in Wuhan, then you're like, yo, bro, I'm going to just bro, the same way there's like on the street, they dab them up, slide you the quick dose, drop the. This is absolutely, it's not actually okay. But I dab you up.
In the wildest world.
In the wildest world. It's just like we're trying to hit both sides of the extremes so we can find some place in the middle and apply logic to all aspects of that. But dab up my boy in Wuhan. He drops the dose in that bat soup, that fire. Apparently, over there in China, they love that. They love that bat soup. I don't know. I might need to try it myself. Actually, not anymore after what happened. But you drop the quick 1 drop, 2 drops, quick Bill Cosby on the entire population, and then suddenly, now check this, and just take that one step further, and not too many steps further, but one step. Now I know what I'm about to drop. I already know what this does on like maybe my lab mice back at HQ.
Yeah. Now I'm following.
So I know what it does to the lab mice back at HQ, and I know now I have the antidote as well. We've seen this in movies. It's like you poison your nemesis, and you say, "Oh, but you want the antidote, don't you?"
That's crazy. I like that a lot.
We've seen these archetypes before. It's almost as if they they just make the utmost sense. So I know how these lab mice respond to this in this environment, and I know what heals them. I talked to my boy in Wuhan, Xinjiang Li. That's actually a friend of mine's name, so that's not racist.
Yeah.
And then he drops in 2, 3, let's say 4 months later.
Right.
It's all over. Wait, I've actually been studying this exact strain. Come out with
the cure,
the elixir.
Yeah, the elixir. No, it's crazy
because suddenly I'm several $billion dollars richer.
That's crazy.
Should anyone do that? No. Would a psychopath who potentially is only incentivized by money do that? I could see that. Are there psychopaths that exist in the world?
People argue that capitalists are psychopaths that are literally incentivized by money. I personally would not like to take that route. I feel like most capitalists, regardless, yes, they make money, but I feel like they generally go into business trying to create a product or create a solution that they feel like could best serve society. Yes, there's people that go in with negative intentions or go in with the wrong intentions, we would say, which is just the money. But I feel like the average person in business doesn't go in with the mindset of like, I'm just going to take advantage of society.
Let me give a quick anecdote, which is slightly tarnishing to myself. My character, but it was because I was a young boy. I was the beginning of high school. I was actually like 13 or 14, and there was a girl who liked me. We had some fun or whatever, crush type situation. And at a certain point, I was no longer interested, but I didn't want to just cut her off like straight through. So what I did was have my boy actually scheme on her to pick her up. So what you see here is, from her point of view, she actually just did something wrong. She was with one person.
I like it.
She was with one person, and then on the side, does this make me psychopathic?
I don't know. But that's always different though.
To some degree, I think everyone has a story in their life that might slightly resonate with maybe some sort of schemey tactic, some people call it finesse.
Oh, but I like the term finesse. Let's use it.
And in the end, she was like apologizing because she got my friend. Little did she know this is all the ploy in the end. It's all I'm saying is like, I've grown since then. That was a terrible thing to do. I'm sorry if you're watching this. You might even know it, but you're not. But the point is, if you have certain motives and you're in the right part of a chess match, perhaps Bishop's E9, and I can like move it over. Now I got your. There's just a certain point where leverage presents itself in mysterious ways to the point where
you would otherwise probably not have made that decision.
That and additionally, the person who would receive harm from that is not even privy to the situation. So like that's just one quick anecdote, and we'll bounce off that. But it's like, is that evil? Maybe. No. Is it genius? Absolutely.
No. I definitely get it. I feel like with this situation specifically, I feel like a lot of people were able to capitalize on it, but they necessarily, in everything else, in a better situation, they would not have chosen this opportunity. Do I feel like in the future they could be potentially people that's like in the movies, back to the idea of like art imitating reality, in the movies where it's like, let's concoct some crazy thing and then have the elixir where they have to pay us X billion dollars to get it. Yeah, there might be. We will hope that ethically that there will be no one like this, but hopefully that there's certain ways in whether it's like government transparency or whether it's some type of thing where it's like if we have a research lab, people can at least understand what you're doing so the general public can have some type of be comfortable with what's going on to some degree. And I don't know what the perfect solution would be, but I definitely think that's something that probably should be looked at more, especially as we've seen how COVID was politicized and used for economic gain in certain ways.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I honestly don't think there's much we can do about that. I think that's like part of the human archetype, like we keep repeating like throughout this, like with movies. So like, yeah, sure, we take it to the extreme in movies where there's like this super villain, he has like this ulterior motive, but sometimes the movie goes a little bit deeper, and at the core, like there's like a silver lining that kind of justifies it. And in the movies, you have to make it extreme for the audience, but it's an archetype based off like the human mindset. That at certain situations, you might take advantage of like some opportunity that's presented to yourself.
For sure. And before we transition into this capitalism talk that we're gonna get into today, is this idea too of like you said, like extremist thing. I feel like we just live in a world today where it's like anything extreme is gonna get the most publicity, like on any aspect. Even if it's something today, if it's something that's small, but the media or like people who cover it can make it like this spectacle, is gonna get there. Like I feel like anything like the most extreme views. Basically, what I'm trying to say is I feel like in society today, there's a lot of people that are here. There's very, very little people that are here and here, but these people get the most spotlight because it's interesting. It's like, yo, you're all the way here. What? Let's broadcast this. You're all the way here. Let's broadcast this. But I think the general majority of society is literally right here.
No, I agree.
And it's crazy because it would make this divisiveness. It would make things way more extreme than they need to be. It's what makes situations literally amplified that should not be amplified. It's like, what? You said that? This person thinks this? It's like, no. There are like very little people on these polar opposite sides that are super extreme, and they're going to get broadcasted. And the majority of people that literally are in the middle are just like... And then, especially if you're like in the middle over here, you're like, oh no, you're crazy on this side. If you're in the middle right here, you're crazy on this side. The whole time, you guys are probably closer together than you are further apart.
No, I think I've said it before. This whole election has been, I think it was in the last election, polls are off, and it's because they realized political participation was low, and it was a result of a lot of people lying in the middle. Sure, there were the outliers, which make up a smaller subset of like this group of people who would vote. So what do you do at that point as a politician? I mean, your main goal is to get the vote. Obviously, next is to actually fulfill the promises of that vote. But the next election, 4 years later, 2020, is to be as extreme as possible. And that's why we've seen this like such polarized environment in terms of, it's not just, oh, I don't agree with you, let's talk, which probably what it was like 8 to 12 years ago. Now it's like, oh, you're on that side? You're a racist bigot, snowflake on both sides. Like, it's all
on both sides. The name calling has gotten to a level that's crazy from both sides, honestly.
And it's like, I don't want to hear what you have to say. You don't agree with me.
And that's why I'm proud to say today that I am independent. And based on my current understanding of the world, I am independent. I'm literally going to say that every time I make a statement that I feel like in the future I might not be. Basically, today I'm independent, though.
I mean, if you have the same opinions as you did 10 years ago, then you probably didn't grow.
Exactly. So, that's what I'm saying. If I grow and like I lean one way or the other, or some different way. Just know, based on my current understanding of the world today, I identify as independent. But let's get into the capitalism talk. Basically, the overarching question for today is capitalism the cause of all of America's problems? That's basically what a lot of people are saying today. I personally don't hold that sentiment, but I'm just going to basically say we're going to get into what is capitalism, what are the pros, what are the cons, some of the key takeaways, and then we have two overarching questions about capitalism that we're going to answer at the end. So let's get into it. The definition of capitalism. Capitalism is an economic system based on private ownership of the means of production and their operation for profit. Central characteristics of capitalism include capital accumulation, competitive markets, a price system, private property, and the recognition of property rights, voluntary exchange, and wage labor. Basically, the average person can be able to own private property. That's basically and a private means of production when it comes to economic means of control. So, example, if Chris wants to start a business, he can start a business, and he'll be able to be producing for the economy. If I want to start a business, I can create it. I can be producing for the economy. Some of the key takeaways is in capitalism, owners control the factors. Like I just said, owners control the factors of production and derive their income from it. Capitalism incentivizes people to maximize the amount of money they can earn through competition. Competition is the driving force of innovation as individuals create ways to accomplish tasks more efficiently. Let's get into the pros and cons. We're going to go through them right now. If you agree, disagree, or any thought about it, right? First pro. Pro of capitalism. Incentives to be rich encourage innovation.
Not a doubt.
You agree?
Absolutely.
No contest at all?
Not even slightly.
I agree. I feel like capitalism does that. Firms have incentives to be efficient.
100%.
There's
a slight, but not enough to even. It's not even worth it. 100%.
My question about this is what is considered efficient? Is efficient in terms of like
efficient is reducing costs, maximizing profit, doing whatever we need, whatever corners we need to cut, which might come at a cost environmentally, socially. To maximize profit, we're going to be the most efficient, but that's only with regards to profitability.
Does efficiency take into account the maximum satisfaction of the customer as well?
Absolutely not. But if the firm deems that customer satisfaction is the most important thing to profit, then yeah, profit comes first, and however you define the definition of profit comes after. So if you deem that customer satisfaction is the most important thing, then absolutely. But you'll
find the most efficient way to get the customer satisfied.
Yes, but if that's not the case, then no.
I got you.
But typically it is.
All right. Consumers are free to choose the products they desire as a pro of capitalism.
So customer flexibility. No, typically you decide. Oh, yeah, in terms of capitalism, yes. Yeah, on the individual firm level, no, but...
Listen, I want to go a little bit more about what that means. The freedom to choose the products they desire.
So on the most simple level, I want to ship my package out. Should I use UPS, FedEx, or some other third thing? I have the option. Or better than that, let me get a burger. I'm hungry. Should I go to Shake Shack, Five Guys, or this other thing? If you were smart, you'd pick Shake Shack.
I'm going to skip down a little bit too, like better alternatives for customers. I feel like that kind of ties into what you're saying.
Yeah, this is...
If you didn't even want that burger from there, you can go get another better alternative somewhere else.
This is simple economic theory, and it also bounces off the thing we just touched on before in terms of each product has a substitute. So, do I want Shake Shack, Five Guys, or McDonald's fast food?
Or Chick-fil-A. Shout out Chick-fil-A.
Maybe I don't have enough time on my hands. I'll get McDonald's right now. But if I want that quality, I'm going to go Shake Shack. There's different needs and preferences for certain situations. That's when those things kick in, which also requires that place to be the most efficient at doing what they're doing.
No, I 100% agree. I think that this list, honestly, this looks like off the internet, honestly.
No, I mean...
I think they did a good job. But it says prevents large bureaucratic government.
Elaborate. I don't know that.
I feel like what they're saying is like in terms of... With other economic theories, it's like the idea of like having more government intervention, and in order to do that, you have to create more government like groups. And so, like for example, example of a government bureaucracy would be like, I'm gonna Google one. Like there's like national agencies that handle stuff. Like I'm gonna Google right now, bureaucratic. I was literally just looking at it the other day, but I can't think of one right now. Bureaucratic agencies examples, right? So, for example, if a bureaucratic agency is NASA, right?
So, SpaceX.
Yeah, but SpaceX is privately
that's my like.
Yeah, that'd be the contrast. So, it'd be NASA versus SpaceX. I feel like most people argue that SpaceX could potentially do what NASA could do in a more efficient and effective way.
No arguments there. Anyone who tries to argue against me on that is going to be wrong.
Because literally, SpaceX is now funding. SpaceX is literally now funding stuff for NASA.
Yeah, that's just how it goes. Privatized companies they have like a certain direction versus governments are like restricted to like certain regulations, laws that have to go through bipartisan support, all these, this, that, and the other. And,
a lot of hurdles.
Government's already slow to make decisions. So yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt.
So yeah, so you would agree that it's a pro that capitalism helps avoid some of these bureaucratic agencies that could potentially be slower in producing results.
100%.
All right, perfect. So we're 5 for 5 on the pros for capitalism. Honestly, I feel like it goes without saying. Like, listen, this is a business podcast. We like
no,
business.
But trust me, like I'm your like podcast devil's advocate. Like,
nah,
if
for
I
sure,
see
for
even
sure.
the slightest like outcome, but no, we're on the same page here.
And I'm telling you, I have no holds barring like to say. Bro, I'm very capitalistic by nature, and it's just kind of like business. I feel like capitalism.
How dare you?
I mean, honestly, by me even saying that, I just put myself in as like the most evil person in the world.
Yeah, you just got canceled.
I just literally probably honestly might have just literally got canceled for saying that I support capitalism. But
the audience knows better.
But
keep going.
Before we get into the cons, we're gonna take a quick break and we come back. All right. So we're back. So now we just finished talking about the pros of capitalism, cons of capitalism. But we didn't talk about the cons here. We're going to get into the cons right now. But before we get into that, also a pro of capitalism that people say is like this idea of meritocracy. So I'm going to read the actual definition of what meritocracy is, just in case anyone is not aware of what meritocracy is. It's a political system in which economic goods or political power are vested in individuals on the basis of talent, effort, achievement, rather than wealth or social class. Advancement in a system is based on performance as a measure through examination or demonstrated achievement. So basically saying that the people that are putting in the most work, the people that are the most talented, and we say talented basically like they're studying the most, they're learning the most, and they're developing themselves the most, should be the people in charge of a certain system. Is that an ideology that you support, or you think it's detrimental?
I couldn't even begin to think of one. Well, maybe at least one argument that's detrimental, but mostly what comes to mind is nothing but like this is like kind of keen to human nature. So I'm gonna give a couple quick examples. So I'm a recent college graduate. If I'm playing beer pong with someone, typically I have a partner, and I see they're always hitting cups, you just demonstrated your achievement. I want you on my team. I want you to join. It's like this degree of trust. Or in the NBA, you got a kid who's going off in college. He's constantly scoring baskets. Now let me bring you up to the next level, and now more opportunities will present themselves. So like, I can't really fathom a society that fully orchestrates itself off of no demonstrated achievement. Like, if you have merit and you have a track record of that, then I'm more likely to A, accept you into whatever's going on here, and B, it just makes more sense that would be the case. Like, why wouldn't you want for some verification? When you get a job, they want to see your arrest records, you want to drug test you. These are all different degrees of merits in order to build trust initially, so we can move on to the next step. So absolutely, I agree with meritocracy. What about you?
Yeah, me personally, I completely agree. I feel like, especially in a situation where you're having someone who's going to be leading something, whether it's a business, whether it's an initiative, whatever the situation might be, you want to have someone who you can trust is going to do that in the best possible way. And I feel like merit is a perfect way to determine that. If you see someone has a history, you know that, listen, if I give this person the power, for example, we vote for political, people who are in politics, right? Not always is it based on merit.
Some would argue this past president had no merit.
For sure. And I would agree. I feel like in most situations that the average person would want to pick someone who has some type of result or shows that they're capable to do what they're going to do. And I feel like even if you take it back to like ancient civilizations, whereas people hunter and gatherers, you want the best person to hunt and gather, to go and hunt and gather. You want the person that shows, listen, they came back. This person came back with 2 whatever animals. They
came out with
a whole bunch of food.
2 deers, 1 bear, and like a horse.
Exactly.
Well, maybe back then you eat that versus the guy who came with like 3 berries.
Exactly. You're like, hey, in terms of merit, it's like we're eating because this guy's going hard. This guy came back with, we can't even feed anybody.
Now I have salmonella because you probably can't get salmonella from berries, but now I'm poisoned because you brought back a poisonous type of berry. Yeah,
and it's not beneficial because it's like no one is benefiting from the lack or the incompetence of this person. So it's better to put someone who's more competent in that role to get it done. And I think it makes a lot of sense. But one of the before you say what you can say,
I was gonna say exactly what you're about to say, but different. But continue.
Yeah, one of the biggest issues against meritocracy is the fact that not everyone has an equal opportunity to reach a level of merit. Yes. And that's the thing people say. It's like, yes, obviously I probably could be one of the best hunters or one of the best people that's going to produce the most, but I haven't had the opportunities to learn in a way that's going to make that beneficial for me, or I haven't had the opportunities in which, through trial and error to get to a position where I'm the best at what I could be if I had those opportunities.
And yeah, so that plays well into what I was about to say. So like in my personal life, like, after you come out of college, you have a resume, you have all these experiences, hopefully, ideally. But I remember in my case, I had like a few, but it wasn't something that would compare to like the likes of someone whose like father was an investment banker at XYZ company. Right. And so in that situation, that person is more likely, based off of merit, to take it up to the next level of society. So in the situation of the hunter-gatherer, perhaps one person was colorblind and they kept bringing in the poison berries because they couldn't see. That's slightly different because in that scenario you're legitimately
I think it though, yeah.
But the point is, like, there are scenarios that exist, and often in a capitalist society where your opportunities are different from mine. And I think the opportunities are what should be the focus. And from there, it's up to you to finesse almost. We brought this word up before. To get the outcome. Sometimes better, sometimes worse.
Right.
But equal outcome itself would be a total disregard of everything prior to, which would be any merit. So, yeah, sure, I didn't have multiple internships. But this internship, how you could spin it, how you could work off that, what you learned, and you as a character off of that, I think is way more important than just, all right, well, everyone gets this job. I don't know. That to me seems like cheating almost.
I mean, I know you brought up a sports example earlier before. If someone's spending 18 hours a day, like Michael Jordan said, he was out like every day shooting free throws in his backyard. He would say he made 1,000, he wouldn't stop, or some outlandish number like that. It's like he's literally working hard to build his merit. So it's like when he goes out and he shoots 3-pointers and they're all cash, it's like he's literally built his merit to that point. As opposed to someone to say like, oh yeah, you should be able to play in the NBA too, just because you like the sport or you think that you are a contender in this space. I don't think everybody is on the equal playing field, which would be beneficial in terms of like producing. I guess in producing basketball would be like entertainment. It's like if some guy's out here, he thinks he's good at basketball, he's breaking every shot. You don't want to watch that. You want to see somebody who's going to come out there 360 dunk because they put in the time. They train their body in a way like a LeBron James, even though he's like a natural freak in a way. He also trained himself in a way that he can go out and perform in that way. So I feel like I think that the opportunity standpoint, it is a very good criticism of the capitalistic system, and the fact that not everyone has the same opportunities to create the merit that people would deem valuable in society. But I think that to a certain degree, if you're willing to put in the time necessary, and obviously is sacrifices involved, I think that most people could potentially get themselves to a position where they're deemed to have a decent amount of merit for a certain role or opportunity.
I mean, like, at the end of the day, and these anecdotes, I feel like best drive the point home because they're very relatable. We all have that friend who is perhaps a ladies' man. You don't call all your friends ladies' man, although they might talk to a bunch of ladies. Yeah. Those are the equal opportunities. He probably had as many opportunities as the ladies' man.
Yeah,
but the outcome of the ladies' man is a lot different from that guy who wasn't getting it. It is the best example that comes to mind right now.
No, I mean, it literally just goes to show, like, skill trumps all. At the end of the day, it's like And it's a perfect example. You know, you talk to 10 girl, he talk to 10 girl, you convert 8, he converts 2. And it's like, listen, we both had the same opportunities. We had the same opportunities. You just didn't convert. And obviously, there's a lot more nuance when it comes to like the real world applications of what we're talking about.
Absolutely. But at the end of the day,
meritocracy is good though.
Steph Curry is a better shooter than
me,
and then both of us. Yeah. So like the numbers don't lie. But yeah,
no matter how many times we get on the court, we're not shooting better than Steph because we didn't put in that time.
We've tackled that one.
But let's get into the cons. You know, we're gonna go same kind of format as before. We're gonna go agree, disagree, any thoughts, right? So cons. Firms can gain monopoly power and exploit consumers. You know, there's no longer any initiative to innovate. Do you think that's a
I agree with the
con of capitalism?
I agree with the can gain monopoly power and exploit customers. I don't fully agree with the incentivizes others to innovate. Mm-hmm. I agree with it to some degree, but I don't fully. So like 100% firms, places like Amazon absolutely have monopoly on the supplier space for the most part.
So I'll ask, do you feel like Amazon is still incentivized to innovate?
Yes, because Bezos wants more money, even though he's like number 1 richest guy in the world.
So even though if a company has the absolute control of a market, you still believe that there is still enough incentive there for them to
on
innovate.
Paper, on like normal like economic theory, no. But someone like Bezos, and there's many people like that, like this, not that many.
Elon too, I would say.
Elon, there's a few. It comes to a certain point where they're making money, they're producing ideas, they're so beastly, they're gonna keep it going. Even Zuckerberg, he's not on Bezos and Elon level, but like they're doing things that prop them up to monopoly level, and yet they continue to go forward.
And I feel like to draw, I feel like a very important like contrast between the two. I feel like Bezos to a certain degree is like. Innovation might not drive him as much as it would for Elon. I feel like for Elon, he is definitely with the things that he does is definitely very personal to him. It's like if he's creating any type of car model or anything like that, it's generally like he wants to do it because he believes it's best for society. I feel like Bezos is a lot of the business ventures he takes now is more so for capital and empire's sake, and in terms of like solidifying Amazon as the behemoth that it is. But I feel like Elon, no matter what, like everything he does is 100% consumer focused.
No, yeah, Elon has this like moral vibe to him, even though like he could low key be like the super villain of the show, but it's just like super low key, like chips in your head. We're going out to Mars real quick, and Bezos is like super rich guy. He keeps it. Yeah, all right. Here's a distinction. Bezos comes out with a move. And it just works 100%. Like, he's like, let's do this. Bang, banger. Elon comes out with a move because he's like, society doesn't have this yet. Let's do this. It's like, that's
exactly.
It's a distinction, but at the end of the day, they're both just very wealthy people, and they're going to continue to be.
So the next con of it is firms with monopoly power can pay low wage. That's how you pronounce it? I think
monopoly.
No, the second one.
Yeah, no, I see that, but is
no, I think that's generally the word. The word is generally monopsony, bro.
I don't know.
No, it is. No, I'm telling you, that's the term.
Which is a monopoly.
No, monopsony.
So what's a monopoly?
A monopoly is when there's one seller. A monopsony is when there's one buyer.
I didn't realize that was the difference. I always
the difference is for Amazon.
I actually remember skipping this class.
If Amazon is a monopoly, what they do is that they're the only person that if you want to get something from a consumer, right? From a monopsony is that if you're a worker and you need a job, there's only one place that you could potentially work.
No, that 100% makes sense. Didn't even know there was a distinction.
Yeah, I literally just found out when I saw this list of pros and cons. Like, what's
I thought monopoly was over encompassing, but I get it. That makes sense.
So the monopsony is like there's no at that point there's only one place that you could work. So for Amazon has like 150,000 jobs or something like that, right? That they bring into the marketplace, probably more than that as it continues to grow. So it's like, is there any incentive at that point to pay your workers a competitive wage?
Rephrase that real quick for me.
So, for example, say you have a business, right? You're the only business in the market, right? I need a job. I know that the only place I could work is for you. Okay. Do you now have any incentive to pay me a wage that is decent for my livelihood? If you know I need you more than anything.
Not as much if there's an alternative on the market. I mean, there's that famous example of the guy. It's slightly different because it's not with jobs. The guy who had like this like life-saving drug. He like hiked up prices like 500% because he was the only supplier of the market. So life-saving drug, people couldn't even afford it before. He rakes up prices. He might have went to jail actually, but the point was he was the only person. So he becomes very valuable. So in the situation of a job, this is the only job you can get. I'm not going to pay you that much. Versus if you go somewhere else, but I still need your talent, now I'm more willing to pay a little more. It's like McDonald's. Like, I can take anyone. I'll pay you. I'm not going to pay you, like, CEO salary, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like the both two cons are kind of intertwined. Because if you go to Amazon, if Amazon is the only person supplying you something, they have no incentive to a certain degree to say we're not going to hike this price up to the highest possible price known to man because we're the only place you can get it from. I could charge you $2,000 for something that really realistically should only be $20, and you're gonna have to pay it. Because I'm the only one selling it.
And a real quick fun fact about Amazon is in the beginning they actually like lost a lot of money being a supplier to do like same day delivery because like their whole idea was if we can get everyone to just use from us because it was the fastest, they would do the same day shipping or like the day after shipping, and they were losing so much money. But over time, the quantity of people succeeded the cost. And that then put them in a position to be like
monopolize in a way.
Yeah. Genius move by Bezos. You beast.
That's kind of wild. So in terms of, they say another con is externalities can damage the environment. So basically, in a capitalistic society, there is no incentive or there is no drive to try to protect the economy. The most important thing is profit. So if you can create more profit by doing something kind of damaging to the environment, that's a con of capitalism.
No, yeah, we touched on this before indirectly. We said profit, that leads to being the most efficient. But if profit is also a product of your consumer, so whatever the customer wants, then the definition starts to change. And from there, and we're actually having this in society right now where if the customer actually wants to be more health conscious, then that thing might be more profitable. I mean, you see more healthy options being more expensive than the cheaper options. And in essence, those are becoming more profitable. So as the people now, first it started off as, let's do what people want. Now that people actually care about more the environment, being more health conscious.
Health conscious, yeah. Carbon taxes and like carbon emissions and things like
all these different things. And then the final step is that in the end, as a result, for us to gain the most profit is to do what they want, which is to be it's called corporate social responsibility, but in essence, that's what the consumer wants, we're there for the profit, of course.
So I guess on that sentiment, I would argue that it's not really a con of capitalism, because at the end of the day, if you have to provide what your consumer wants, if your consumer wants the most economical, like, you know, when it comes to like corporate social responsibility, they want the best option in that regard, then is that really a con of capitalism if you have to give them that in order to survive in the market?
It's a pro and a con of capitalism because in the past, looking in hindsight, that's been a con. It's like, well, this is what we were focused on before, so that's how things are set up. But this is what we're focused on now, so this is where things are going. So I guess over time, without a doubt, it's a pro because it corrects itself. It's like the supply and demand, it shifts. This goes up this way, this is going to go up. And like we find that equilibrium. Versus politics, where it's just like this constant push and pull. I do think capitalism at least has this like self-correcting mechanism where it's like, oh, these people aren't happy. Oh, this isn't making as much money. It's like equilibrium finds itself over time.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like a lot of things that people push for different economic systems, a lot of them are based on environmental things or based on a lot of social factors. But I would generally argue, like you just said, that I feel like capitalism is definitely self-correcting. For example, if you're working at an employer that is treating you like trash and there's another employer that is treating their employees better, you're going to lose employees. And at a certain point, you have to realize, why am I losing employees? And then you have to correct yourself so you're now once again competitive in the market. So I definitely would agree that there's cons, but I would argue that the capitalistic system does correct those cons faster than they ignore them.
Yep.
Not for sure. And then it says tends to lead to larger inequality. I feel like this is definitely a highly nuanced one, and I feel like is difficult to address because I'm not even perfectly 100% sure the angle they are approaching this con from.
Yeah, I'm not gonna go the obvious route. It definitely in capitalistic society. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. I'll hit that issue of it. So in terms of race, that there's that's a longer conversation. But in terms of class, I think it does tend to potentially perpetuate class issues. Which at that point there needs to be other interventions. Like the issues of class shouldn't be solved by capitalistic ideas. That's something that has to be something else. Sure. But absolutely, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer in a capitalistic society.
No, for sure. Even like the whole idea of like even going back to the pearl of capitalism, which is meritocracy, right? That also comes into a con as well. Because, for example, if I'm succeeding in a capitalistic society, right, and I amass a certain amount of resources, and then I have a next generation of children, I now have resources that I can artificially boost their meritocracy. I can put them in the best schools, put them in the best opportunities. I'll probably at that point have a decent network in which I can
versus
put them in the same positions.
The flip side where someone who didn't, and then the next generation they wouldn't be able to. So it's like the top
continue to rise faster
while the low continues to be at the low. Yeah, absolutely.
So I definitely do think that's a perfect con of capitalism in a way. I genuinely don't believe another economic system could properly alleviate that, but I think that it can address those issues in a very
at the very least, a capitalistic society. My bad to interrupt, but a capitalistic society gives you the opportunity, or at least in America, although the American dream might not be what it was once was, without a doubt, you could absolutely flip your entire situation over. So you don't necessarily need to have old money. New money can be obtained. But yeah, I agree. I don't know if there's another form of society that can do that. But the con to that, with every good and bad, it's like, as a result of that, new money does stay. I mean, old money does stay.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't. It's definitely more nuanced. I mean, definitely. There's definitely gonna be
it's hard to tackle that one.
It's definitely gonna be idea that probably comes up a lot more times than we probably have to bring it up. Throughout the way the world's going, probably gonna touch this idea of wealth inequality and as a con of capitalism many times. But to continue, it's prone to economic boom and bust cycles.
What does that even mean?
So basically,
I know what that means.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. Just in terms of like, I guess
it's prone to good and bad times.
Yeah, basically, it's the fact that in a capitalist society, the creator of this pros and cons list believes that it's inevitable in capitalism for it to go up.
Yeah, no.
Everything's going good. Psych, everything's going bad. Up, everything's going good.
This is an unpopular opinion. This is my analysis of the situation. Learning about this in school, seeing how society's going. I think the historical data can't pop. I'm trying to find the best way to explain this. Essentially, yes, there's the up and down, the boom, the burst, then the down, the repression, to recession. I think that's how we've gone in the past, but with globalization, social issues, all these different factors that I couldn't even begin to name right now, that's not necessarily true. Because, so in the past 10 years, we've seen a boom, which is slightly longer than any boom we've seen. 2020 could be seen as the beginning of the bust.
Oh, yeah, the beginning of a bust, yeah.
But regardless, that's an external factor. So, like, COVID was an external factor. Maybe there's just always some factor that comes to play eventually where it's up and down. But I'm thinking, over time, this historical model we have isn't necessarily accurate. And I don't know how to better explain that. I'm just going to have to replay this video in several years and then, like, rewind to this moment I say this. But there is more optimal ways to do things than we've been doing. And we're going off the historical data. Historically, it is up, down, up, down. But if we continue to optimize, which is what we do, firms continue to be efficient, society's trying to continue to be efficient. Over time, we're going to see, like, there's booms, there's lesser booms, and more booms, and that's the full picture, not necessarily. So that's a bold statement. No economists would agree with that. No textbook.
They would though.
But maybe not.
I'm just gonna say, like, on that thing. I was reading a book recently, a book called Discrimination and Disparities by Thomas Sowell. 100% recommend it. I'm probably gonna butcher the statistics behind it, but definitely read the book. I think it's very good in terms of understanding, like, the economy. But he said that it's from 1970. I'm gonna probably butcher the dates, but it's roughly the same range. 1970 to today, in a 50-year time span, there was 36 million Americans that have not only moved from lower class to middle class, but from middle class to what would be considered upper class. And to get upper class is not really hard based on statistical data today. But it says 36 million Americans it was either they moved from lower class to middle class, or they just transcended classes. Like, middle class moved upper class and lower class moved to middle class. Basically, he was trying to say that there is economic progress at a rate that has never been seen in history. So regardless of the up and down cycles, there is still a ridiculous amount of people.
What's this guy's background?
Oh, this guy's crazy, bro. I tell you,
Let me hear his background.
This is probably one of my biggest role models, and I say that with all meaning.
He's a brother.
Bro, he's from Harlem, bro.
Really?
This guy right here is from Harlem.
Does he have a statue?
No, he's still alive, bro. He's 90 years old.
No, but I stopped. Still alive. All right, so the reason why I say that is because I have a theory from what you just said that kind of goes against it. But tell me his background.
So basically, his background. The thing is, the reason I love him so much, bro, he's from Harlem. He grew up in 145th. 140 something.
I definitely heard the name. Yeah.
Right? Literally beast economist. He grew up, went to Stuyvesant High School. Then he went to University of Chicago, Columbia, and Harvard College. Taught at UCLA. He served in the military. Taught at UCLA. Now he's at the Hoover Institute at Stanford University.
Wrote a book called Black Rednecks and White Liberals.
He has wrote over
Isn't that relevant?
He wrote 40 books. Black Rednecks, White Liberals.
Wait, click the View 45 real quick.
Bro, he's literally wrote mad books, bro.
He might be.
This is the book I just read right here, Discrimination and Disparities.
Ooh, I like that.
He literally has so many books. And the thing is, like, everything in all his books is, like, he approaches it from the standpoint of, like, listen, he's an African-American male who literally worked through some of the hardest times in America. And this is the book I want to read next, Charter Schools and Their Enemies, because I think that education is super important, especially in today's society. But this guy is just like, he's...
Oh, wow, you just opened up a door I didn't know existed.
Like, this guy, like, in terms of... And he's an economist.
Justice.
And the thing, another guy, unfortunately, who just passed away, and I wanted to talk about it today, too, is a guy named Walter Williams. I just read his book, All It Takes Is Guts. Another American economist. He grew up in Detroit, literally struggling, like, hardest probable situation, right? Was able to work his way to a certain standpoint in which he went to UCLA, studied economics at UCLA, studied free market theory, laissez-faire, economics, free market economy, and he advocated, and both of them are like best friends. Like, they're like mad close, and they're like, that's my boy. Even like when Walter Williams just passed away last week, Thomas Sowell just did a tribute to him on his YouTube channel. Like, this guy is like probably one of the greatest African American intellectuals to ever live, and it's true. Like, the things that they say, like, it's not gonna be popular opinion, because everybody has, their viewpoint and they believe certain things, but they say things that are genuinely backed by statistics and data, and they break down the data in a way that's very digestible, and I think it's beast, bro. Beast.
No, it sounds beast.
And I mean, this guy wrote 40 books. Like, that in itself is, you got to give this guy credit for 40
without
books.
I had no idea. And just to the audience, like, there's literally, if we're talking about statistics, if you read 3 books on any given subject, you will instantly know more than 90% of the population about that subject. You begin to obtain mastery over that subject, and that's only 3. The problem is reading is escaping us. I mean, it has happened to me too.
No, for sure.
I'll pick up a book and I'll finally get to that group where I'm like, let me read this.
To be honest, I don't even read them, bro.
And then I fall out. But it's very common.
You know what I do now, and what I do, and this is just like kind of a side note. So what I do, I listen to the Audible. Like but
it costs. That's the thing.
It costs, but the thing, and it's harder to focus. But what I do is I just make sure I take extensive notes. So, for example, I'll do the Audible, but everything that's being said, I try my best to annotate.
How often are you reading this though?
Pretty often.
Because
I'll go back over it.
I'm a big write notes guy, and then don't go back over it.
I mean, this is a topic of economics, and I feel like it comes up more than I would like it to. So, for example, if I'm watching a video and they say something about a specific topic, it will ring in my head, and I'm like, oh, I remember in this book it would say it. So I'll go through this, and for the most part, I highlight some of the most important parts, like a lot of things like minimum wage laws. This guy, Thomas Sowell, not as good as Walter E. Williams. Walter E. Williams does a perfect analysis of why minimum wage laws are probably flawed. And the average person today would be like, what do you mean? We need to get paid more. But I would argue anybody who read that book, All It Takes Is Guts, and understood the standpoint in which he articulated why minimum wage laws does not make sense, would have a difficult time combating minimum wage laws today. Just from the standpoint he took. But that was a very big aside. But
no, absolutely, but a very crucial one too, because books, it's just an escape society, and then it also might allude to why we are where we are today in terms of not trying to get any more information. Even there's gonna be millions of people who, if they watch this podcast, would resonate with what we're saying, because like we're not any different. Like we might like go a little bit deeper than like society has led us to, but to a certain degree, like we're all on the same page. It's just like certain situational factors that lead us to either pay more attention to one thing than another, and it's unfortunate too, because like now that like I'm gonna at least check out at a minimum one of those books.
The thing, you don't even gotta check out the books, though. I'm gonna show you this right here. And the thing is, like the way I first came across him was go on YouTube. Just
YouTube.
I literally watch every single video, because this guy, like, literally everything he says is like I had to watch every single video because I just respect him that much. I'm like, yo, his standpoint seems legit. He seemed like he's a genuine person that genuinely cares about the progression of people, and he does it from a standpoint of trying to make things more beneficial for people. So I mean, I watched the majority of his videos, and I think that's a good place to start. I mean, I would never tell somebody to just hop straight into a book, because the books are long and they're kind of, the language in it is kind of offsetting. Like personally, like even when I watch it, it's from a standpoint where it's like doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Try to get the computer charger in,
but
it doesn't work.
It didn't finger?
No, it did, but it might have overloaded. That's when it's
the circuit.
I might try again for a quick second.
Yeah, no.
I mean, this is the viewer. The viewers with
the viewer understands. The viewer understands.
Knowledge and tribulations.
But no, for real though. While we figure out the situation, you got it?
Yeah.
While we figure out the situation right here. One thing I would say about Thomas Sowell and Walter E. Williams, and there's a lot of other people who are black economists that does the similar things. And I'm not saying that they have to be black. It's just I happened to come across them because I was watching a specific segment that was about black and economic advancement, and they came up, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. Who are these guys? I never heard of them. And I generally feel like if they taught these guys in school, the population would be a lot better for
All
it.
right, what would you say to people who are honestly just like you and I, perhaps COVID has given all of us, but you've taken a little bit more advantage of the time in your hands in terms of actually reading this? What do you say to the person who's like, I want to read it, I don't have the time? I got Sally Snapchatting me. I have Sarah, who I want to hang out with, and I have my boy John, who's like, let's drink on a Tuesday. What do you say to that guy who's just as intellectually curious, but doesn't have the time or can't find the time? How does he get around that?
I would say just start with
she.
Yeah, he or she. I would say start with the YouTube videos. I feel like the YouTube videos pique enough interest. I mean, the books are kind of the same as the YouTube videos, just to like a ridiculous in-depthness that literally might not even be needed for everyday application. The videos are more everyday things. So in terms of, for example, a big thing he talks about is like the welfare state, right? He talks about the pros, the cons. He talks about how, like the disincentivization, if that's even a word, of working and things like that. And I think that those things are relevant topics to today.
So basically what you're saying is, instead of as great as Netflix is, all these shows are coming on, maybe once in a while it's extremely beneficial to just dive into the unknown, something that you want to do but you haven't done. If anything, COVID has exposed is that beforehand you used to say, well, if I just had the time, and suddenly all this time's on our hands and still people aren't doing the things that like they thought they would do. Perhaps maybe have too much time, but you've almost made it look easy in a sense where The taking notes for me, like, I mean, I congratulate your reading.
No,
The notes
kinda,
is a little OD.
crazy. I ain't gonna lie.
But the actual reading of it, the utmost respect, and I think that should go to anyone. You don't even have to go that far. You don't even have to take notes.
Yeah, you don't.
Couple of YouTube videos, people who have done the work for you will sum it up as you're doing now too. Will pique the interest. And now I'm gonna read the book, but like priorities. Netflix is cool. You should take the time, but at another point, perhaps dive into some Thomas
Sowell.
There you go.
And the thing is, I feel like too is like it just comes down to like the motivation. Like the motivation for me was clear. Like I wanted to learn more about economic theory. I wanted to learn more about economics in general. I didn't go to school for economics. I went to school for finance. I took economics classes. So it's kind of similar. So like that's why I could kind of follow a lot of the topics you talk about pretty easily. But the motivation for me was clear. I feel like in society today, you know, he talks about. I think in the most recent section he talked about was the idea of like the errors in data and how that's politicized. So he said errors of omission. So for example, someone would say it's a statistic, but they will omit something that clearly shows that the correlation does not mean the causation in that situation.
That was like the first thing I learned about stats.
And the thing he said, for example, he was like, oh, people would say that white lenders are discriminated against African American applicants, right? But he said if you look at the data, they clearly omitted the fact that white lenders were lending to Asian Americans at a rate of 2 times, right? So he said he doesn't see any logical reason why a white lender would discriminate against a white person unless it was some type of other statistical factor. So then when he cross-referenced that data with the credit scores, he saw that Asian Americans had credit scores that were often way higher than white lenders. So he's like, it would make no sense why a white business owner would discriminate against a white person looking for a white applicant, and why he would actually give to an Asian person unless it was another factor, which in this specific situation was credit score.
Perhaps I was lucky, but the first thing I remember about learning statistics, it was this fact. I was shown a graph, and it showed 2 companies doing something that was supposedly good. And I was like, so what does this graph tell you? I was like, well, this graph's telling me that this company's sick. And he was like, well, how about now? You like zoom in, change the numbers, change the X, the main important parts of the graph, but it's the same data, and I have a completely different story. So with that, I've become critical of like just taking at face value what you see. Yeah, but at a certain point, I guess I'm more curious, how do we go about teaching the population who hasn't been as fortunate, who's gonna take, oh, this is a fact, fine, this is true. And it's a conversation. We're figuring this out as we go. But, like, that's one of the biggest problems in society today.
I mean, even with, like, the certain things I do on TikTok and stuff like that, right? And just, like, means that allowed me to reach audiences that I wouldn't be able to reach otherwise. It's, like, I think that's a good medium to start presenting ideology. Like, I remember I posted a video the other day, and someone was like, oh, like, I never thought of it like this, or I never seen it from this angle, or I never even knew that something like this was possible, right? Or something like this was the actual ideology. And I was like, oh, yeah. And certain things like that I think is important. I feel like the school system kind of suppresses specific ideology to a degree, which I think is a problem in itself. And I think it's definitely a bigger issue that definitely has to be tackled. We probably have to dedicate a whole podcast.
Yeah, we'll get out on
episode
later.
To that.
We're getting deep, but we're also hitting you guys some facts. But
that's a fact, no, for sure.
It would do us more justice for us to dive deeper into those
specific areas. Yeah, no, that's the thing too. That's why I want to even start to just tip of the iceberg with this topic.
Yes.
And the next topic we're probably going to discuss is socialism, just to really understand some of the overarching topic before we go deep. Because if we really want to go, there's a lot of deepness, and especially in economic theory.
Yeah.
And economic theory literally influences politics today on both sides. Whether one side is heavily capitalistic, one side is heavily subsidized government, socialism, whatever the situation might be. But there's a lot there.
Every essay I wrote in my poli-sci classes about the intersection between politics and economics, and like how they just constantly it's like it literally the core of yin and yang in society, I believe, is politics and economics. That's like every essay I ever wrote. Doesn't matter. I didn't do that well in the essays. I actually did, but for the audience. But
yeah, bro.
Are we so
now? We're going to skip crony capitalism for the main fact that I want to make crony capitalism its own thing.
Yeah,
it's a lot in crony capitalism in terms of lobbying that a lot of people need to understand what lobbying is. But to wrap up today, because we've kind of been a pretty long episode today. The final question for today, is going to be is a dual question. What Should inherited wealth be possible? Should people be able to inherit wealth? And is capitalism overall fair?
Okay, so I'll hit the easier one first, which is, should wealth be inherited? Maybe it shouldn't, but at the end of the day,
Just go from the most logical standpoint.
From the most logical, yeah, absolutely. And I that's why I preface it with a moral standpoint, so I can just finish off with all straight logic.
Gotcha.
It's like, maybe it shouldn't. Maybe morally, if someone isn't inherited wealth, each person is born into society with like, this is what I have to do. If I have the motivation, the grind, the hard work to do it, then I'll obtain some outcome. Fine. But in reality, if I accumulate a bunch of wealth, part of that motivation for me is to put that off to my offspring. If I become a billionaire, it's part of the reason I did that is because all my children have a better life than I did.
Gotcha.
That's not always the case.
That was your incentive in that situation.
For
okay.
For me specifically,
makes sense.
yes. But that's not always the case. But I just don't see a realistic scenario happening where like I accumulate all this wealth and then my children aren't able to inherit. Where does it go? Taxes are one conversation, but how the government spends it is like, the government's so inefficient. Like, take it, fine, do your government spending, take care of whatever clinics, healthcare, fine. But we're all on the same page. I don't care if you're left or right side of the aisle. The government's not that good at spending. Like,
no, for sure. And just even go back on what you're saying right now, it's like, but I completely agree. I think that from a moral standpoint, should wealth be inherited? Of course not. It should be no reason logically that just because your parent or your predecessor, I would say in a way, in the family, work for something that you should get the wealth from a moral standpoint, I would say.
But it goes both ways, because also morally, it's like, they did that. Who are you to just... This is like, government came after family. Like, family comes first. If back in the tribe, this tribe was known to do this, and that, and over time they grew.
Okay, I get you. I mean, I'll flip it then, I guess. I meant to say from a logical standpoint, would it make sense?
But it goes, yes. So, like, it does go both ways. And, like you could make arguments for both, but at the end
I would
of the
argue
day...
Logically, you can't argue that inherited wealth makes sense.
You said logically, I can't argue that?
I would presume so, because I generally can't. I personally can't. You probably could, but I personally can't think of a logical argument for why inherited wealth makes sense. Morally, it makes a lot of sense, but not logically. I don't see why inherited wealth makes sense.
I guess I hear you. Logically, I think is even. It's like on all bases. I have money. My son, my offspring, my daughter, my they. It's 2020.
Because they are you. In a way?
This is my family. Nothing else really matters outside of my family. Sure, there's society and whatever, but at the end of the day, there's all this going on. Who am I to care about all this stuff going on with Epstein, Jolene Max, all this BS?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I did what I needed to do, and I'm passing it on to my next generation. And who else is going to do that for me?
Logically,
who else is going to pass on what I did to the next generation?
Logically, and my thought processes of the situation, I would think that the wealth that you had was a direct product of the people who produced that wealth for you.
It was me.
That's debatable, depending on the situation.
Okay, so let's say it was me.
If you work, but if you are amassing a certain amount of wealth, it was not you solely. So I would argue your wealth might be better spent going back into the vehicle that produced it for you. For example...
All right, let's say Bezos, who has an entire conglomerate.
Perfect example.
Was it really not him? Was he not the vehicle? Was Henry Ford not the guy who took us from horses to cars? And sure, he didn't do it himself, but it's because in society, there are those who create the car or, like, make labor for the car, and there are those who come up with the idea. What's more valuable? Obviously, in our society, what Henry Ford is way more valuable. Is that debatable? Sure. But in the end, Henry Ford's kids should also, not should, But if they didn't reap the benefits of what their father did that was so beastly, so life-changing that generations after generations know his name, that's unfair.
Morally, but not logically.
Why not logically?
Logically, if you... Okay, let's go Bezos, right? Logically, Bezos creates Amazon, makes 150 billion plus, right? Bezos directly created that, right? Logically, if Bezos passes away, the person or people next more logical to inherit that wealth because they directly contributed that will be anybody that worked at Amazon in a sufficient role to help support that goal. So you're logically, from a logical standpoint, they genuinely helped create that wealth.
So Amazon, absolute conglomerate. It's international.
Right.
You're saying that money should be spread out over thousands and thousands of people. Even some people work there for a year. Some people who just contracted for Amazon in the warehouse, which they're constantly hiring on a day-to-day basis. They've already been paid for their services. But you're saying in addition to that, okay, you worked there for a year. We're going to split Bezos' net worth up into, honestly, probably hundreds of thousands of people, and then give you a check and say, this is what his death was worth here. Instead of potentially, yes, could it go to waste going to John Bezos' son? I don't even know if he has a son. And if he does,
I think he does, yeah.
Maybe, and I don't even know if that's his name. The point is, you're saying that's the more logical solution than to give it to his chain of command.
Listen to this, right? I'm going to try to put in an analogy, right? Say I have an idea. I want to make a pie, right? I don't
want to make a pie?
I want to make a pie. I don't actually make the pie. I get a few chefs, 5 chefs, right? That create the pie, right? They create the pie and they give it to me because it's my idea to create the pie, right? They give it to me. I have the pie, right? Unfortunately, before I pass away, before I eat the pie, I pass away, right? Should my son be able to eat the pie, or should the people who made the pie be able to eat the pie?
Here's what's wrong with your idea. What's wrong with your analogy?
Even if I paid them to create the pie. What's wrong with your analogy? Okay, I want to hear.
One, pie is so common. If I tell some guy to make me a computer, there are a bunch of like kids who could make computers now.
For sure.
But if I tell you to make me something, the MacBook, if I ask you to do
the most intricate logistics company, I cannot make it. The average person cannot make it.
If I ask you to build me something that hasn't been done before, which is what separates Henry Ford car, Steve Jobs, Apple, Bill Gates, Microsoft, and even Jeff Bezos with Amazon, is different than if I just ask you. I was like, oh, this has been done before. Write me a book. I could write a book
for sure. Yeah.
So there's something very different about doing something that hasn't been done before. That one makes it infinitely more valuable.
But listen, Elon Musk, for example, said in
SpaceX, Tesla.
But listen, one of his recent things, right? He said
Neuralink.
He said that he creates the idea, but someone else has to make the idea come to life.
Yes.
So is that person not more valuable than Elon Musk in that situation?
Absolutely not. And
okay, obviously he's not more valuable.
I don't know that guy's name.
Obviously, yeah, but obviously he's not more valuable for the main fact that he didn't come up with the idea. But if he made the idea come to fruition, is that not...
He didn't do it by himself. He's part of a team of people.
For sure, but I'm saying those team of people brought that idea to fruition.
And we don't know any of their names.
But we don't know their name because they're not a CEO. They're not someone who's in a role in which they control things.
But don't you think they can make decisions, especially in a capitalist society?
But my thing is, Elon Musk's son, or Jeff Bezos' son, XAE12, has never made any decision
because he's
did not bring any. Rightfully so. But that's my point. He has not made any decision or has not brought any idea to fruition that could potentially have affected the course of Elon Musk's wealth. There's people who literally have directly affected the course of his wealth through bringing his ideas to fruition.
So, look, at the end of the day, where you're bringing
us... But that's logical. That's not moral.
No. That's not. You're being idealistic in a sense that, yes, in the perfect society... When you're born, even if you have no contributions, like everyone else who isn't born should be equal to someone else who was just born.
Right.
But in reality, and is very, like, I agree on that level. But at a certain point, especially in the society we built today, which ties in with this whole capitalism thing, it's like...
It's literally logical.
Your dad's Elon Musk, and my dad is Jeff from Subway or James from Subway, who's
But it's
now
logical
pedophile.
to me.
To you,
It's not idealistic. It's logical.
No, but you have to
If
accept
you
that it's
are
idealistic.
direct, yeah, I accept it's idealistic to a degree because I personally think that if you work hard from a moral standpoint, I think morals trump logic in certain situations. That morally the son should inherit it, right? But if you directly affected the revenue stream, logically you have a claim to the
me give you
revenue
a scenario
if
then.
you directly affected it.
So let's say you grew up poor, right?
Correctly. Okay.
Let's say at age 31,
Okay.
you meet the girl of your dreams, hottest girl ever.
Okay.
She's perfect. There's not a single flaw about her.
Okay.
3 months into you turning 31,
Okay.
you finally do the deed. You just reached $100 billion net worth. You finally made it somehow. You were poor. You've met the girl in your dreams. Everything is perfect.
Okay, I'm following.
She gets pregnant. Maybe it's your birthday. Maybe it's Christmas.
I'm following.
And 9 months later, you're terminally ill.
Okay.
Your baby's born. You've accomplished all your dreams. You die at a young age. Very tragic. And it's just your wife. You made the money. It's just your wife and the kid that is now born. Should they start from where you started 30 years ago?
Morally,
Even
yes. Logically, no.
Morally?
Morally, no. Logically, yes.
And logically?
Bro, because
Even logically, this is your family. Wait.
Yeah,
Logically,
that's my
wait.
family. Logic does not care about your feelings.
Logically-
Logic does not care about how my family
Logically,
feels.
a marriage, you just bind into a contract to bring two parties to one. She is now you, and you're now her.
Okay, cool.
You brought life into this world, and
Okay.
even then, logically, you're saying all your wealth should dissipate and go to some government entity and or the people who made the money for you.
I definitely reject the notion of government entity.
Sure.
The means,
Sure.
production that produced my wealth, yes. Logically.
Nah. All right. Well, then we will
We'll
agree to disagree.
We'll
We would
agree
definitely
on
agree to
that.
disagree.
I just feel like from a moral standpoint, I feel like
All right.
it makes sense morally because
Take
it's
out-
like why would it would be unfair to literally expropriate
Let me ask you
my
this
wealth
then.
in
I
a
got you.
situation.
I'll ask you this: should all human decisions be determined with logic?
No.
And
that's
so
why I support inherited wealth to a degree from
And
a
s-
moral
yeah,
standpoint.
so
I would support it more morally than I do logically.
yes, so I would say at the end of the day, there are
Morals are
certain
trumping.
things where logic can apply just as humans because we're emotional beings.
Yeah, and I will also argue that it is not feasible. It's not feasible to tell somebody that because if I have a kid and my kid's 5 and I want to transfer my wealth, but I know the government's going to take it, I'll just transfer all the money to him, and that's not his money. And nobody can tell me I can't just give it all to
And
him
also-
while I'm alive.
Why would I even want to make all this money? Why wouldn't I just get rich, drunk
And
every
spend
single
all of it,
day?
yeah.
It's just a very unconstructive society.
Yeah,
But all of those factors combined then make it logical.
make it illogical for inherited wealth to not be something that makes sense.
Which would make it logical to have wealth be inherited.
Yeah, but I think it steps to it though. If it's on the basis of like 1-to-1,
But it's never one-on-one. That's not logical in
that's
and
not
of itself.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. Then with other factors included, if you include the fact that I could literally just before I die transfer my wealth to my child,
That's
which
an
is
anecdote, sure. But
which is the most logical thing to do in that situation. If I'm 80 and my kid is whatever
You
for
get
whatever
hit by
reason
a
my
car,
kid is
though.
15, right?
There are more than one way.
But I'm saying if I have the opportunity and I already know that my child's not gonna be able to inherit my wealth, then before I feel like, and I feel like most people in affluent positions already plan their estates planning very early in life.
Hopefully, yeah.
So trust
I
me,
don't know
Bezos,
yet.
as soon as Amazon went public, he probably was planning his estate before his kids probably of age.
Probably.
So I would say logic. I would just say, listen, I have this money. I'm gonna put all this there because I know once I die, the state is gonna take all my funds and put it back into the means of production that created the funds that I have today. And I feel like that would make the most sense, and I feel like it would make that inherited wealth then illogical because it's like if either way he's getting the money, it makes more sense to just give him the money.
Yeah, no, I just think there's. I mean, we already.
It's
hit-
heavily
there's
nuanced.
so many
It's
more-
heavily nuanced.
There's so many I don't even think it's that heavily nuanced. There's so many factors to life that as a human, and I agree with you on economic standpoint, but from a human nature standpoint, there's just too many things.
Yeah, I would agree. From human nature, nature, it makes no sense.
From an economic, I agree with you. From a human, no. But okay, all right. So and then that's how it goes, though. And this is the yin and yang as well of
life today.
Absolutely, and this is the most important thing, that at the very least, even in something that we're able to agree and disagree on, we're at least able to speak on it, which is something that's so
very important in society today.
And it's just so rare in 2020. It's like to have an hour, maybe even 2 hours. Actually, I don't know how long I've been going, but at the same point, it's like this does not exist in 2020. I hope I can look back on this video and be like, I remember when we couldn't even agree, and even then we were doing it. But like, I hope things don't continue to get worse. I'm happy that we're able to talk about something like this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we're happy to have like a conversation where we have two different standpoints, and we can have a conversation in which we come to a decision, or even if we don't come to a decision, we can agree to disagree and have it in a civil way.
Absolutely accidental. The black and white only further illustrates this point of the contrast. You gotta find that yin yang. So
for sure. Definitely with capitalism, we definitely hit the pros, definitely hit the cons, definitely hit the idea of inherited wealth, meritocracy, crony capitalism. We'll probably discussing another one because I think it's a lot there, especially with lobbying. A lot of people don't know what that is. Definitely a lot there. We're definitely gonna get more into, but
this might be an episode you need to watch one or twice.
Yeah, definitely once or twice. But if you made it all the way to the end, definitely check out Thomas Sowell, check out Walter A. Williams, two great economists that I think do a great job of breaking down data and logically coming to conclusions and helping just teach the general public about topics that they otherwise might be ignorant on. But yeah, like the video, subscribe to the video, and stay in tune. We have a lot coming in the future. We're gonna keep working, keep grinding, and trying to not promote, but create the best content we can. Yeah, the best content we can. And we're out.